Hello, lovelies and beautifuls. A friend of mine was like, "What about those eclipses? How are you doing after those eclipses?" And this is a friend that hardly ever asks me about the astrology. And so I was like, "Huh, I wasn't paying attention actually." And I was so like going through it that I didn't pay attention. But now I did the research on what these eclipses are on, and I'll go ahead and share them because from what I can see when I look, and people are talking about these eclipses, there's like polls going on as to whether people are still feeling the effects of them or not, and all that jazz. So I feel like, okay, cool. Like, in these polls, a lot of people are really feeling the effects of these eclipses. So I'm going to go ahead and go over what I discovered when I looked them up and share with you. Forgive the background noise. I don't have privacy today, but we're going to get through it anyway. Okay, so these eclipses that began, so I'm recording this in August 20th. So we're right kind of in the cuspy between Leo and Virgo right now. And during the final decan, which would be mostly about society, and it would be mostly about in general, like the general shift in society, but we still see that in our personal lives, even though it's generally about society and the karmic changes that society as a whole, or the world as a whole, is kind of going through and facing right now. So what we had was, we had like these little moments that were about our ego and the things that we used to value, the things that we used to pride ourselves on, no longer being part of the script, no longer being of value. And those changes, of course, have been ushered in since the beginning of this year. This beginning of this year, when Pluto went into Aquarius. Pluto has to do with power structures. It has to do with karma. It has to do with past lives. It has to do with even general shifts in our karma as a planet. So around January, we started like thinking this way, feeling this way around certain things. There were just certain things that were changing. Whether it was that, and I'm going to start off real vapid and like shallow, but maybe you were somebody who always like put on your face before you left the house, or maybe you were someone, you know, by put on your face, I mean like put on makeup, and like maybe you were somebody who liked to have like, you know, that little hair extensions, and or maybe you're somebody who was more of a mother than a lover, always just the mother, never really like the lover as much as the mother, a caretaker. Or maybe you were a teacher, or maybe you were a lawyer, or maybe you were this other thing. And around January of this year, you were like, yeah, you know, I don't really value, like you started realizing like someone else maybe isn't valuing it, and it kind of made sense to you, and you're like, I think maybe those things aren't valuable anymore. Maybe I don't want to do those things anymore either. And some of us are like later at this than others. Some of us are still kind of figuring it out. So that kind of comes into all of this as well. So on the week of last week, which would have been like the 16th, right before the 16th, a little bit before that, we were being tested on like, is this really it? Like, is this the thing? Is this the thing that you want to, you know, write your new karma on? So maybe some people were like, you know, I was always like a mother and never really a lover, and now I'd like to be a monk. Or maybe it's like, whatever it is, like whatever it is for you. Maybe you had one type of way of doing things. A lot of the types of ways that we were in society focused on were very much of a Capricorn type nature. And by that, what I mean is very achievement focused, very achievement based, very much, you know, follow the structure, follow the rules, and you get the thing. Ding, 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 ding. You get the ring, and then throw the ring and get the ring to like go through the clown's mouth on the ride that goes in a circle. And that's kind of how karma has been our entire lives, because of Pluto being in Capricorn. And now like Pluto has shifted. It's like there's different sets of values. So these values tend to be around more about collectivism. So however that plays out for you, like collectivism for someone living in someone in one person's life, being more focused on collectivism might be about checking out what is equity and equality and fairness, and it might be very political. In someone else's life, it might be about balancing the scales in regards to maybe they were always like caretakers before, and now it's time for them to like really take care of themselves and prioritize themselves. Maybe there are a lot of people possibly that a lot of people exist that don't really know what we really want for ourselves or what we really like. We kind of just go with whatever we're taught is the thing. And like some people are getting to the point where they're like, no, actually what my heart really likes is this and that. And so prioritizing the self's heart over what others might say. And by doing that, we find ourselves in different types of collective circles. So, the people who might be, they might have always been a caretaker of family. Maybe now they're feeling like they want to be a caretaker of humanity on a wider scale or on a more spiritual scale. So they want to be a monk or whatever it is. Like, there's so many different ways that this could play out. So these eclipse basically came up, and it was like everything that you used to value, like that's no longer it. So I was so deeply in it that I wasn't even noticing that it was happening. But particularly like, and this is going to play out different for every person individually too, depending on what's in your chart and what was aspected during that eclipse in your chart. So for me, I happen to have a Jupiter in Aries. Aries rules the body, and Jupiter is all about expansion. And Jupiter is also about luck, and it's about like power in some ways, but it's not like plutonic power. It's like happy power, being empowered. So there were definitely some like conjunctions happening for me, and like there was some squares happening for me because I have a Cancerian thing that was squaring. So how this affected you in regards to what area of your life you're starting a new chapter on, it's very easy to see that reflected in your chart, or maybe you just like kind of are, on your own. For me, it was very much it's the year of the horse, and for people that are Piscean sun signs, and people born around the year that I was born in, a big thing that we're working on this year is our backs, specifically our lower backs. And that would be root chakra stuff. And so like for me, like it was really coming to like learning about how much my physiological situations have a lot to do with my emotions. Whether I feel like I'm going to be accepted or not accepted, or whether I feel like I can stand in my truth fully and wholly, and how much more necessary that's becoming, and my need and desire to be understood. And so for me, what came up was what I used to value was like taking care of everybody, making sure everybody's needs were met, and I am still acting from that place to some degree. So we have until the 28th before it really it gives us this, the 28th, there's going to be another eclipse, and that's when our North Node is going to shift to Piscean. So this is right in the line with where I'm at. So anyway, Pisces is very much about self-sacrifice. It's very much about It's the sign of self-undoing is the very classical way of like looking at it. But it can also be about magic and science and like believing in the impossible and seeing like how the impossible is possible and yada yada. So for me with Pisces, and for a lot of people, when we go into this next eclipse and then the shift happens with the North Node, and we're going to be in the sign of Virgo, we're going to be very much about letting go of being extremely particular, letting go of our rigid ideas and values of it needs to be like this or that, or A plus B equals C in a negative way, and makes like those kinds of values are going to need to like change into something that's less self-sacrificing. So gosh, I had like so many things to say about all this, and now I'm like on camera and I'm like, I don't remember what I was going to say completely. But you're going to notice by the end of this month, while we're in Virgo season and we've left Leo season, Leo, there was a lot of ego happening last week, and we're still like, some of us are still hungover from it. We're just very much like, for me, it was very much like about being honest about things that have to do with my health and my body, and being believed, and realizing like my value doesn't have anything to do with what other people have to say about me. So like hiding my truth from people that aren't going to understand, or who are going to misinterpret it, or who are going to judge me or whatever, like I can do that or not do that. It doesn't matter, but no matter what, my truth is still my truth. So like I can be honest and let them misunderstand, and they'll figure it out eventually on their own. An example so like for me, that's how it played out. It was very much about the body, because Aries has to do with the head and it has to do with the body. And so like, it kind of reminds me of like a long time ago. I think I was like just in my beginning of my 30s. And a friend of mine who was very driven and Capricorn, very driven. And like both of us were really good at things like sales. We were really good at making a sale. And anyway, long story short, we had both like moved to different cities and things like that, but we were keeping in touch. And I let her know that I had discovered something about my health and my central nervous system. And from this discovery, I had made different choices for my life in regards to what I wanted to do with my life and how I am going to handle things. And she just laughed. She just didn't really believe in like illness or sickness. She believed that everything's just kind of like in your mind. Or she just didn't really believe me. And so it was like, well, what can I say? Like, too bad, but at least this person wasn't in the same city as me, and I didn't have to like tolerate it other than like a short phone call. So, and it taught me like to kind of keep my things to myself, and rather than be judged, and like, because survival was really still very important. So it just taught me to like protect my truth and keep things private. I have a Scorpio North Node, so Scorpio is all about privacy anyway. But then a few years later, she ended up getting multiple sclerosis. She ended up becoming invisibly disabled, and it became more and more visible. This sort of thing has happened a lot in my lifetime, where if there's something someone doesn't understand and they're kind of mean about it and they kind of laugh about it, and they're kind of like, I have seen these things happen to them. Like, they have to go through it themselves. They don't understand until they go through it themselves, and then inevitably they usually do. And a lot of times when someone's laughing, what we find funny tends to be actually what we're really afraid of. That's part of what makes things humorous. So sadly, she had to go through that journey on her own. And Yeah. So it's really like this last set of eclipses in Leo season, there was just so much ego in it, um and for me, I was starting to get like finally get comfortable in my reality, and like with my songwriting and my artistic endeavors, and like having some art up in a gallery, and like starting to come out about like disability justice stuff, and like managing chronic pain and just things like that. And then I was like confronted with old belief systems that I had years ago, where I was like, that's all bull. That's all just in your head. So it might be something like that for you. It just kind of depends on where your chart is. Or maybe it's something like, you're a teacher because like everyone in your family was a teacher, or you're a doctor because everyone in your family was a doctor, or there were enough people in your family that were respected for being a doctor or a teacher or a lawyer or whatever line of work that you're in, that you pride yourself on. You're like, I work and I do this thing and I do it like my grandma did it, like her grandma did it, like, and or my grandfather and my father, and this is what I do. So these eclipses kind of like shined a huge light on whatever you used to value. It's an old script. It is no longer in style. It is no longer valid. It is no longer what people are proud of. It's no longer what people are cheering for. It's no longer what and you might have noticed this on an individual level. It's no longer what your heart is really like resonating with. Maybe you've always secretly wanted to change careers and learn a whole new thing. Maybe you've wanted to learn about what it's like to be a therapist or a psychologist. Maybe you've wanted to learn what it's like to be a teacher. Maybe you've wanted to learn what it's like to be whatever, a different, maybe a mother or a father or a parent. And you've never like valued that before, but whatever it is, it's like the old you comes up, like this old mirror is coming up and showing you like who you used to be and how you used to think and how you used to talk and how you used to view the world. And you're like, whoa, like I can't befriend that. I can't be in alignment with that. I'm no longer that way. You realize like you've changed, and it's not just you individually who have changed. It is the age of Aquarius. It is so many of us. It's society that's changing. So I found myself saying things like, just things that like I never really said out loud before, like I was raised to be the perfect wife. And what did that get me? Like, that didn't get me anywhere. It didn't get me anything. I was raised to be like, hopelessly devoted. And what did it get me? No, that's not actually. I've lived in places where you're respected more when you stand up for yourself. You're respected more when you take up space. Like I've lived in places where like you have to be that. You have to be the opposite of like what you were taught was valuable in order to get by or to exist. I've lived in places like that, but like it was really coming to like the forefront for me. Like I was just realizing like, whoa, like just some things about myself. I was just like, for me, and for you, it might be something completely different than it was for me. I was like, wait a minute, I was raised to, like I was raised that, you're not supposed to rest too much. You're not supposed to nap too much. You're not supposed to take it easy too much. I was raised with like words like laziness and like, and lying and faking and all of these things. And it was like I knew and I learned that those are terms and terminologies that oppressive people can use to control whoever they're using them on. But like I never really like spoke out about it before. Like, no, like I've known that that's not the case. Even though my body, even though my instincts, I've been literally trained to like take care of everybody and like make sure everybody has everything that they need and make sure dinner's like made and like the house is perfectly clean and all these things. Even though like that's how I've been like conditioned before like taking care of myself and doing something I might prefer doing, like, even though I might still fall into that, because this is how my chart is, and it's where my Pluto lines up. So it's one of my tests in life. Like, will I get to know myself and what I really love? Or will I just keep trying to people please to like be loved? So it was like these eclipses were putting up mirrors in front of us each individually. And they were like, do you see it now? Do you see how like that's not the way that it goes? It's about like, we all do what we like, what our hearts love, and what, because Leo's very much, it's about ego, but it's also very much about the heart. It's about graciousness. It's about following our hearts. And if we're coming from a wounded heart place, then we're going to be doing the opposite of what our hearts really want, right? So like, in examples of like wounded heart would be like maybe someone's always been you know the saying like always a mother, never a lover. Maybe like someone's always been a lover and never a mother, and then like they've always been around people where like public displays of affection just didn't happen and it was unusual, and then like they get around some people where like there's all kinds of public displays of affection, and so like they don't know how to handle it, so they start kind of like acting in ways that are maybe not like appropriate for those situations, because they're just so unfamiliar with those situations, and they don't play with those kinds of things in their culture or where they're from. So this would be the time where like there's an opportunity to see that and just see like, okay, maybe this is the chapter of like what is it like to really be a lover? Like, what is it like? What is it like to like be in public with somebody that can't keep their hands off you? You know, some people might be going through that. It's about, or what is it like to like use less? Maybe like in the past, there's just been like a lot about using things. Maybe it's about using less. There's just so many ways that this could play out. But on the 28th of this month of August, we're going to be going into like just a whole shift in like our direction, and it's going to be about you have to like let go of some of these old ideas of what achievement was. Maybe it was, you know, achievement before. Maybe it was like whatever you valued before. Maybe it was you know, just teaching children, or just taking care of animals, or just taking care of everyone around you, and now it's not going to be about achievement. It's not about like getting praised for that, but it's going to be something else that's going to be different. It's like a chance to accept it at the cost of sacrificing yourself if you don't. So that North Node, when the North Node moves into Pisces at the end of this month, and we have this other eclipse in Virgo season, I look at it too, because Virgo is very much like very particular about all the details. So it's about, you know, you don't have to be so like, today I woke up and I was like, okay, you know, my tracking device still says I'm off balance with my central nervous system and my pain, but I've got this amount of points that I can use in a day with my energy. And, you know, like the dirt and the dust needs to get cleaned up in my house because it's making us sick, because we had construction work done, and I really want to work on my music. And it was like, I could see that cleaning up the dirt and the dust was going to take a lot of my energy. And I'd already cooked a lot in the last couple of days, because I could see like sickness was starting to happen in my household. And I was like, you know, faulting to these other things. Like I have master and Cancerian values and tests. So like Saturn Cancer, like made me want to do all the things that I've always valued. And like my Pluto placement, which has to do with keeping the home tidy and taking care of things. Like it was like, you know, get to that. But my heart really wanted was to work on my music. And I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to do that. I just wasn't like, I just didn't think I was going to have the energy. And so this next eclipse, Virgo would have been like, no, you do not work on that music until you get every single windowsill wiped off and every single floorboard and and it was like, instead what I did was I wiped down all the surfaces in the first room, the room that we spend most of our time in, and the room that we sleep in, that we've been sleeping in since this construction's going on. And then I took a rest. And then on my way to like doing the stairwells and other things, I passed by my music studio and I stopped in there after taking a rest and I worked on my music. And then after I worked on my music for a little while, I went through like every single song and recorded and listened and yada. Then I went to the next portion and did a little bit of that. And I didn't get them all done. I didn't get every single windowsill in the 4-story house done. And that is what Virgo being, it's going to be Virgo season, but Virgo, we start off Virgo season with Virgo in the South Node. So it's like, we know how to like put ourselves in Pisces, eclipse in Pisces. So we know how to put ourselves last. We know how to sacrifice ourselves. And myself would have been, you know, like sacrificing myself looks like making huge meals that are gonna like be way more than what I need personally, but enough to like feed someone else for days so that I don't have to eat in a cafeteria at work. We know what it's like to like sacrifice ourselves and not do the things that we really love doing for ourselves like the most, because we use up all our energy on trying to please others. And then like we feel hurt and heartbroken because maybe they just didn't like the seasoning, or like maybe they didn't eat the food, or whatever it is, and they never asked for any of that, right? So like we know what that is, self-sacrifice, and it plays out different for whoever it is. You know, maybe it was staying late at the school and like doing extra things for the kids or the teachers or the principals, or staying late in the office and working extra for this client that didn't pay you for the extra hours. Or maybe it's whatever it is, like it's these ways of self-sacrificing, and we're going to realize it's death or love, basically. Like it's time for the new chapter. It's time for us to create our new karma. It's time for us to be like, no, this is really what I'm about. I'm not about doing a bunch of stuff that I wasn't even asked to do, that isn't necessarily needed, because people can grab and go and fend for themselves. Like, this is 2026, you know, like a lot of people eat out, they eat fast food, they eat grab and go stuff, like homemade meals. This isn't like the 1940s or the 1930s. This isn't Christian fundamentalism everywhere. Like, you know, people are okay if they don't have like, you know, their food made and like the house perfect in every single way. You know, it's about like doing what we love. It's about like listening to our hearts and going for what our hearts are, as long as it harms none and doesn't harm anybody, to work on a little bit of music. But something like that would have been so hard for me to like find the balance. I would have done one or the other. I would have been like, I can clean or I can do my music, but I can't do both. And somehow I found a way to do like a little bit of both, enough of both. And that's like a huge thing for me personally. Some people, that's not their issue. Maybe they're really good at balancing, but there's something else that like used to be valuable and it's not anymore. And it's okay that it's not anymore. It served its purpose. It served its time. It's just that it's a new chapter. And so whatever that is for you, you're going to be feeling it. You're going to be figuring it out. And I think that earth signs are really going to be feeling it next. I think that water signs and fire signs were really feeling it in the month of August during Leo season and the end of July. But I really think that the next, it's going to be earth signs that are going to be really feeling it. So I hope I explained it. I hope like I made it clear. But yeah, it's really interesting. Like somebody asking me like, how are you doing after these eclipses? I'm like, oh, because I was going through it. I was just like, yeah, like, I was looking in a mirror of past self, like what things I would have tolerated, being questioned, being not believed, being disrespected. I was just like, over the weekend and leading up to that, I was like looking in that, and I kept trying to keep myself in calm, but like my central nervous system was rising and rising. So like these things really do affect us. Even when you're like doing whatever you can for it to like not to, it can still affect you. Not always, but it can. Like, so anyway, best of luck to everyone, and cheers. And happy next eclipse and Virgo season.